Good morning and happy Monday, everyone. That's right, it's Monday. So you all know what that means. We've got another episode of the Monday Motivation Podcast with Keagan Jewell coming right up. It is episode 2, and we've got a great one this morning. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get on to it, everybody. Let's go. The Monday Motivation Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Keagan Jewell, and today we've got a special one. We've got an interview with my man, Joey McKernan, and Joey is someone that I've met at college, really great friend of mine, and he is a team member on the Hope Project, where, if you were here with us last week, you know that we are all about inspiring hope and giving you vision in your life as you go each and every day to live out your God-given potential. We love being able to do that and being a part of that. And so before we get into this interview though, small little disclaimer. I'm sorry for my Raptors fans out there. This interview was recorded before the finals happened. And so I would like to apologize for that. This episode will be a little bit longer than normal, but there's some really great content that I didn't want to cut out, and so it'll be a little bit longer. This will be probably one of our longest episodes we'll have, but that being said, let's get into this interview. Please enjoy. There's some great content that my man Joey brings us this week. Let's NBA, give the Warriors the title. We all know they're going to win. And whoever wins the East gets to play the West in the finals. Y'all don't get a championship or anything. It's just y'all are fighting for second place because that's really what's going to happen right now.
They honestly are incredible. I mean, I watched, this isn't like a promo or anything, but have you seen Steph Curry's new show on Facebook Watch?
I have not. I've seen commercials for it, but I'm not gonna chance.
Bro, it really is incredible. Just their perseverance and stuff like that. So if you get a chance, check it out.
I'll have to.
Yeah, it's good.
I'll have to do that. So Joey, the other day we were talking, you and I.
Yep.
And you brought this idea to me, and this idea you called it thinking with your lid off.
Yep.
Correct.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit more about that. I know we got to talk a little bit about it, but what exactly do you mean by you need to begin thinking with no lid on your mind? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I mean it's funny because I think our world is filled with this whole banner that everybody should live to their dream, or they should think outside the box, or think creatively, you know what I'm saying? Or do something different, or dress different, or start a new business, or start a new style of church. But I find it interesting because the moment someone does that, the moment everyone attacks them.
Yeah.
And what happens is I think we lid ourselves, even though we've fooled ourselves into thinking we live in a world without lids, that you can do whatever you want to do or try anything you want to try. But I think that sometimes we preach that, but we don't always act like that. When someone does something outside of the normal, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everyone goes at them, and I think it's human nature in a way. But I think we lid ourselves, but we say that we live in a lidless society where you can try anything or do anything. But I think we're still limited. I do. And I think we've built a culture that we've kind of fooled ourselves into that. So.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I think even with this podcast thing, I know as I've talked with people, some are excited. It's like, oh, that's super cool. But you start telling, like you said, you start telling people what you want to do, these ideas that you have, these ambitions that you have. And even as you're talking, I don't remember the speaker name. I don't remember exactly how, but I actually shared this with a coworker the other day. We were going, and she just finished up high school, and she loves dance, and she is doing this dance training thing this summer for a month in New York. And she wanted to do all summer or all year, I think it was, but she just didn't have the money. And so she told me, she goes, hey, you know what? She goes, I'm going for a month. She goes, but I'm hoping that they're impressed with me enough that that they say, hey, you know what? We want you to stay around this entire year.
Wow.
Let's see what we can do to. Yeah. We know you can't do it financially. Let's see if we can't help you out.
Wow.
And she looked at me. She goes, yeah. She goes, that's a dream. My dream for it though. She goes, I doubt it'll happen though. Like I don't think. I just looked at her and kind of this idea of. I told her I was like, hey, you know what? Go for it.
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, I don't remember who the speaker was when I was at Rest Christian College.
Wow.
But I remember sitting in chapel and a speaker was up there and he told us. He goes, your dreams need to be big enough. And this is what I told her. I was like, when you tell people your dreams, the few people you do, because I'm a firm believer in when you've got a dream, you don't share it with everyone.
I agree.
You got those people around you that you share it with.
Yep.
But when you share it with those people, I'm a firm believer in this too.
Wow. If
they aren't looking at you like you're crazy, like there's no way, then it's not a dream. It just, if you tell someone that and they go, oh yeah, I can totally see that happening, it's just a goal.
Right,
but like you said, I think we go and we take that to the extreme sometimes as a listener and go, we hear this. I could have easily been like, heard her tell me this. Hey, I'm hoping I'm going to go for a month. I hope that I impress them enough that they want me to stay this entire year and they essentially come up with money to give me a scholarship for it.
Yep.
I could have easily heard this and said, oh yeah, you're crazy. There's no way that'll happen.
Sure.
But if I understand you right, like I think this is kind of what you're talking about with this thinking with no lid on your mind of hearing people's dreams and going, yeah, that may sound crazy, but you know what? Go for it. Like you've got that on your heart, you've got that on your mind. Right. Especially something like that. You go for it and you fail. What are you out? Like for her, she goes for a month. Okay, my dream is to perform well enough to impress them. Okay, she's gonna do everything she can to impress them. Yeah. She may impress them by maybe like hey, okay, I'm only here a month. She comes back, what's she out? Okay, she got to go to this amazing dance thing for a month and just, so yeah, I really like that. If you mind me asking, what are some areas I think you've seen or you think that we can improve on and begin this discussion with people around us of how do we exactly think with our lid off? Because it's easy to talk about.
Yeah, right.
But in your mind, in your heart, what is a way that we can sit there, having conversations with our friends, go, what does it look like to think without a lid? And then also, how do we take that and bring it into conversation with those around us?
Yeah, it's good. I think, well, for one thing, I think we are held in, there's a lot of power in a system, right?
Yeah.
And there's a power in everyone is doing it this way. And so we do it that way. And as people of, who are seeking Christ, and there's leaders who are listening to this, I think the hardest thing is truly breaking from the mold if you see something that you want to, that God wants in your life, or he's giving you a dream. And a lot of times it disrupts things, which means that you break a mold. And which means that at times you have to think alone a little bit. I'm not saying that people won't support your dream or you're busting through the lid, but I do think that, man, it is tough to break a system. And whether that's in government, whether that's how your business has always been run, whether that's churches and how churches have always been run, whatever. They're afraid. Yeah. And I think they are afraid of we talk about breaking through lids, and I've heard a lot of people talk about some crazy stuff, and I've sat down with a lot of people and they're like, Joey, I have this dream to blankety blankety blank, but I'm like, I think it's amazing, but I don't ask them, can you dream? I think there's a difference between a dreamer and a visionary, actually comes up with a plan, is not afraid. Well, that's not true. You have fear, but can actually attack that dream.
Or that dream pushes through and kind of trumps that fear is what you're saying.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a difference between a dreamer and a visionary. And so I think our world is full of dreamers. I think the way technology and all this stuff has changed our game and changed the world around us, I think there's so many dreamers, and I don't think we lack that. I think we lack people who are saying, well, this is a dream, and it's a little outside the edges, and it does blow through the lid of how people have done this in the past, who is willing to step out and do it? I think, if you ever heard the story of Uber, there was a taxi cab service that tried to do what they did. I think it was like Magic Cab or something like that. And they had the dream of changing the taxi service.
Oh, for sure.
But they couldn't, and they didn't execute well enough. And the truth is, I don't think anybody I can't even remember the name of them, which is not good. But Uber perfected it, and then, Lyft came around, and it wasn't those who dreamed. It was those who actually took action and was able to blow through the lid of what people thought.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I remember when Uber first came out, I remember someone telling me about it going, hey, yeah, did you hear about Uber? And I was like, no. And they're telling me about it, what exactly it is that we know now of you essentially download this app, you become an Uber driver, you register your car, and instead of getting a taxi, we're here in Omaha, Nebraska, where there's really, you see taxis around, but not as much. I can grab an Uber and get a ride easily. And when I first heard this, I'll be honest with you, I was like, there's no way this is working.
It's kind of sketch. When I first heard about it,
Exactly. I was like, there's no way this is working. There's a sketch part of it, but I'm like, I remember saying exactly what you did. Kind of really thinking with my lid on going, there's no way this can happen. We already have taxi services. I'm thinking of these big cities, there's taxi services around, what are you going to do with those people? But I'll tell you this, I was in New Orleans about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And as I'm going, my friend and I, we got an Uber driver, and we were talking. I think it was Uber or Lyft. I can't remember, but we're talking with him. Great opportunity to just get to know these people. Right. And this dude he said, I used to be a taxi driver for this many years. Heard about this Uber and Lyft thing, and I think he ended up stepping away from the taxi service, doing something else for a little bit. But then now that he's quote unquote retired, he came and he knows the streets well enough, and he did Uber because it's like what he did as a taxi driver, but his own hours essentially, and a lot less stress, a lot this. And so even just seeing that, it was crazy that it's taking over an industry, but it's also the industry it's taking over. Those people are still allowed to use that knowledge they got, which is crazy.
I think there's a level, and I'm glad you shared that, Keagan. I think there's a level of stubbornness so there's a balance in my mind when God puts something on your heart to run after, a call, a dream, a vision, a passion for something. I think there's a level of listening that you have to do, listening to culture, listening to people around you, listening to mentors, listening. But there's this other side where when you blow through the lid or blow through the ceiling or try to change something or lead something differently, it's you have to have a little stubborn in you, because I mean, you look at a Steve Jobs, and I remember watching a video of him, and it was a part of what they were doing with Apple, and it was right around the first Mac or whatever, and he's presenting it. And I remember this guy gets on the microphone and he says, I love your creativity, but I don't think this will ever work. And I was like, dang, he just straight up told him in front of hundreds of people at one of their presentations, he said, I don't think this is going to work. And he was like, well, I'm glad you have that perspective, but the truth is, I believe in this, and we're going to keep moving forward. And could you imagine if he stopped based on that man's opinion, right? We wouldn't have these phones, right? Yeah. And we wouldn't have an iPhone. Our world would still be where it was. And so I think he was able to pioneer because he had that level of stubborn and I think there is an okay, healthy version of that, but I do think sometimes people get too stubborn and get blind. But yeah, man, I think when God gives you something to blow through a lid, there has to be a little bit of, there's going to be tension. And I think that's another thing. Everyone's willing to dream, but people are not willing to go against the tension. Yeah. Because our world doesn't like to feel, especially the younger generation, doesn't like to feel pain. And so we dream, but we don't execute. And I think that's the hard piece about it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I really like how you said even God has given each one of us something to do. I think that's big on like you said, as we're coming up with these dreams, obviously I think it's important to point out too that we should take these dreams and bring it to God and be like, all right, God, and align it with what He's called us to do. Because I really think that we can go and say, all right, this is what I feel in my heart, God. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. I want to go with this, but is it aligning with what you've called me to do?
Sure.
And taking a look at what He's called us to and saying, using that calling to be able to use that and be like, okay, because of this, I want to do this other thing. And pull towards it. And I think that when we have those people around us, like you said, that are going to be in our corner, when they know what God's called you to do, those are the people that's like, oh yeah, dude, it sounds crazy, but that makes sense because I see this in you. And that's something that we'll be able to talk about a little bit more in one of our later podcasts, those I see in you conversations. I do have 2 questions for you, Joey. The first one is this. It is, as you're sitting there talking, as you're sitting there going, let's say you come to me with something. Me as the person that's hearing this, how do we balance backing those people, saying, okay, hey, I got your back, but also, like you said, sometimes there are ideas where it's like, okay, you're crazy, there's no way this is going to happen. Do you have an opinion or a mindset of how do you balance those 2 things of support versus just being real with people? That's the first one. And the next one is, I'll just go with that first one first. How do you balance that listening to people and believing in them, backing them, but also just being real with them, saying, hey, I don't think this is going to work for you. How do you balance that?
So I think in any dream or vision, there's a process. I think that when I talk with people, I'm always like, do you have a plan? Have you thought this through? There's some data involved. I think there has to be fruit in the dream even before the dream exists or the dream is executed. I think you have to show the data, show if this was available, this is what's needed, or this is the idea of a job or a new style of church or whatever. I think there has to be a level of data, and I think there has to be a level of this is actually going to help the world. Elon Musk is a great example. He says, if your dream doesn't help the world, why would you do it? And I think you have to show a level of, here's the problem, here's my solution, and here's how I believe this will actually create a solution. Because I think some people just dream to dream. And I think when God gives you a calling, it's for a purpose. And there's a purpose because there's a need. And there's a need because there's a problem. And so if you don't have that, you know what I'm saying, and you're just dreaming, that's where I hesitate with people, where it's like, okay, great idea. One, does it actually help anybody? Or are you just dreaming a dream? 2, have you really thought through the perspective of in the data and the numbers and kind of does it actually support something in the world? And 3, do you have some sort of execution plan? Would you lay, I know it's a little crazy, but would you lay your life down for this dream? Would you really go all out for it? Or is it just this idea? And I think that's what separates people. I think that's what separates people from being a dreamer to being a visionary is having a dream, but knowing that if we do this as a team, the world will look different, and that our execution, I'm going to go for it, and it may fail. It might, and that's okay. You're willing to put yourself out there, and so if I see that, I'd be willing to get behind, whether that's a church leader, business leader, supporter, or young person, or whatever. So, yeah.
That's good. Yeah, man, I like that. That really helps, I think, be able to figure out that balance. The second question, real quick, as we're running out of time, what exactly, so I'm sitting here, we're having this conversation, as people are sitting there listening to this conversation going, I like this, but I want to know, how do I take this into, that daily life for me? So I'm headed to work this morning. How do I take this and apply this to maybe it's my work life or maybe a side thing for them that they've got an ambition for and a heart for. How do they take this and apply it and be like, okay, I'm going to put this into action, this idea and this mindset of I'm going to begin thinking with no lid?
That's good. I would say Simon Sinek says it best. He says, start with your why before you ever get to your how.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think you have to start with the why. And again, as we want to inspire people to their God-given potential, we believe our purpose and why comes with what God has called us to do, to transform the world around us, to build the world around us, to disciple those around us. And so if that is our purpose, it has to start there. And I think people love to do things these days, but they don't know why they're doing them. It might come from a bad ambition, selfish ambition. But I think when it comes from a kingdom ambition, I think God will reveal those hows through different things, through different opportunities, through different dreams and journaling and all that stuff. But I think we have to marry the why. And I think too soon we get married to the how. And we get 10 years down the road, we're doing things, but we don't even know why we're doing them. And I've met entrepreneurs, they start businesses, 10 years down the road, they're empty. They don't know why they're doing it. I mean, they might even have success, but they're like, this still doesn't give me life. And I think before the dream or the lid, there's a deep purpose and calling on your life that you have to seek out and to really dig down and say, God, why do I get up in the morning? What is the statement? What is the purpose? Why do I wake up every single morning? What is that? Because from that, you will have those lit ideas and busting through the lit ideas because it's driven by something deeper than a platform, driven by something deeper than a podcast or a business or whatever. You're driven by God's call on your life and a deeper purpose. And so that's what I would tell people. I'd say before you get to the how, to break through the how lid, because that's really what we're talking about is the how. Before that, you have to settle in your heart the why.
That's good. I really like that. So yeah, I just want to, as we finish up here, I just want to challenge each and every one of you that just like Joey talked about, whether you know what God has for you each and every day, or maybe you're listening to this going, I love this, but I don't exactly know what God has for me. I think each individual spots of that really begins with what he was just talking about, the why. Sit there, find time today, sit there and go, why do I wake up in the morning? Why do I get up? Why do I go do what I'm doing? Because like I said, if you know what God's called you to do, knowing why you get up, it'll be driven by what he's called you to do. And if you don't, then that'll help you answer that question, what does God have for me? So I just want to, Joey, love talking with you, man.
Thanks, man.
I'm pumped for this. I'm excited for the conversations we will be having. And just, I want to reach out to everyone there. If you have any questions, feel free to look us up on social media, The Hope Project. Shoot us a message saying, hey, listen to the podcast. I have a question about this. And we would love to answer your questions and maybe talk about it on a later podcast for us. So like I said, check it out. Like the podcast. And every Monday, we will be putting these out to be able to help you guys figure out what exactly it is God has for you in life and how you can live your God-given potential and purpose out each and every day.